I've commanded warships for 17 cycles. I've stared down enemy fleets, negotiated with hostile species, and survived 3 assassination attempts. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the moment a human walked onto my bridge and told me he could fix what 3 generations of our best engineers couldn't. Let me take you back to that day. The day everything changed. The Valorian fleet hung in space like dying stars, 47 vessels drifting powerless in the Nexus sector. My flagship, the Ethereal Dawn, was the only ship maintaining minimal systems. We'd been stranded for 6 standard days. 6 days of watching my crew's hope drain away like oxygen from a breached hull. Our quantum drives had failed simultaneously, a cascading failure that our engineers called impossible. Yet here we were, floating in the void, vulnerable to any predator that might pass by. I stood on the bridge, my silver skin catching the emergency lighting when my tactical officer announced an approaching vessel. Small, primitive, human. Captain Zyn'thara, my second-in-command, Commander Thuris, approached with that cautious tone he used when delivering bad news. The human vessel is requesting permission to dock. They're offering assistance. I almost laughed. Humans. Those curious little beings who'd only achieved faster-than-light travel 2 of their decades ago. What could they possibly offer the Valorian armada, whose civilization had been crossing the stars for millennia? Permission denied, I said, turning back to the tactical display. We don't need charity from. Captain, Velrus interrupted me, which he never did. They claim to have identified our problem. The human specifically mentioned resonance cascade failure in the quantum manifold. Those are his exact words. My 3 hearts skipped a beat. That was classified information. Information our own engineers had only confirmed 2 hours ago. How could a human possibly know? Let him dock, I said quietly. But keep weapons trained on their vessel. This could be a trick. 20 minutes later, I watched through the observation window as the human shuttle attached to our docking bay. A single figure emerged, wearing a worn gray jumpsuit and carrying a metal toolbox that looked older than some of my crew. He was tall for a human, with dark hair streaked with gray and eyes that seemed to absorb everything around him. He walked into the bridge with the confidence of someone who belonged there. No hesitation, no fear, just calm certainty. Captain Zyn'thara, he said, his translator rendering his language smoothly. My name is Deacon Gray. I'm a salvage engineer, and I can get your fleet moving again. I studied him. Humans were always fascinating, so much emotion playing across their faces, so easy to read. But this one was different. His expression was controlled, measured, professional. You understand the complexity of Valorian quantum drive systems? I asked, letting my skepticism show. I understand broken machines, he replied simply, and I understand patterns. Your drives didn't fail randomly, Captain. Someone designed this failure, but they made a mistake. They assumed you'd never bring in outside help. The bridge went silent. He just voiced the suspicion I'd been harboring but couldn't prove. Show me, I said. Over the next 2 hours, Deacon Gray transformed my understanding of what humans were capable of. He moved through the Ethereal Dawn's engine room like a dancer, his hands flowing over systems our engineers claimed were dead. He didn't have our advanced scanners, our quantum analysis tools, our centuries of training. He had intuition, experience, and something our people had lost somewhere in our technological advancement, the ability to feel what a machine needed. Here, he said, pointing to a junction node deep in the quantum manifold. Someone installed a harmonic oscillator. It's crude, almost primitive, which is why your scans missed it. It waits until all ships synchronize their drives, which your fleet does during formation jumps, then triggers a resonance cascade. Beautiful sabotage, really. Simple but effective. My chief engineer, a brilliant woman who designed half the systems on this ship, stared at the tiny device Deacon had exposed. By the ancestors, she whispered. I walked past this junction 17 times. You were looking for sophisticated threats, Deacon said, not unkindly. Sometimes the best sabotage is the simplest. Can you manufacture a counter-resonance generator? In 3 days, perhaps. I can build one in 6 hours, Deacon interrupted. But I'll need access to your fabrication bay and complete authority to work without interference. I should have been offended. This human, this outsider, demanding authority on my ship. But something in his eyes told me he wasn't being arrogant. He was being honest. And we didn't have 3 days. You'll have it, I said, but I'm staying with you. If this is a trick. If this is a trick, Captain, we're all dead anyway, he said with a slight smile. I'd rather spend my last hours fixing engines than playing games. We worked through the night cycle. I watched him transform our fabrication bay into something that looked more like organized chaos than engineering. He pulled components from his ancient toolbox, tools our fabricators couldn't even identify, and integrated them with our advanced systems in ways that shouldn't work but somehow did. Where did you learn this? I asked during a brief rest period. Your people have barely left your solar system. Earth, he said, taking a drink from a battered flask. Specifically the belt, asteroid mining colonies. When you're 3 months from the nearest repair station and your life support starts failing, you learn to fix things with whatever's available. Or you die. It's a good motivator. And the quantum drive theory. He gave me a look that might have been amusement. Captain, your people publish your research. We read it. Just because we can't build what you build doesn't mean we can't understand how it works. He paused. Sometimes the people closest to a problem can't see the solution because they're too familiar with it. Fresh eyes help. The counter-resonance generator came online after 5 hours and 43 minutes. Deacon installed it personally, his hands steady despite obvious exhaustion. When he activated it, the ethereal Dawn's quantum drive hummed to life for the first time in a week. My crew cheered. I felt something close to tears, which we Valorians rarely experience, but Deacon wasn't celebrating. He was already moving toward the shuttle bay. Where are you going? I asked. The other 46 ships, he said simply. This generator works for your flagship, but each ship's sabotage device is slightly different. Whoever designed this was thorough. Each ship needs a custom solution. That's impossible, even with a full engineering team. I'll need 3 days, he said, cutting me off again. And I'll need to move fast. The question is, Captain, do you trust me to work on your fleet without supervision? Because I can't do this with someone watching over my shoulder every minute. This was the moment I realized, the real test, not of his skill, he'd proven that, but of trust. Could I, a Valorian captain whose people had ruled this sector for generations, trust a human? An outsider from a species we barely acknowledged. I looked at him, this tired human in his worn jumpsuit, and saw something I'd stopped seeing in my own people. I saw someone who cared more about the work than the glory, someone who measured his worth by what he could fix, not what he could command. You'll have your 3 days, I said, and full access to the fleet. But I'm assigning someone to accompany you, not to supervise, to assist. I work alone, Captain. You'll work with my chief engineer, Dr. Zyn'thara, I said firmly. She's brilliant, she's eager to learn, and she'll keep you from getting lost in ships you've never seen before. Non-negotiable. For a moment I thought he might argue, then that slight smile crossed his face again. Fair enough. But she follows my lead. No debates in the moment. Agreed. The next 3 days were a masterclass in human determination. I tracked Deacon's progress through the fleet, watching as ship after ship came back online. He barely slept, living on caffeine and something he called spite. Zyn'thara sent me regular reports, each one more enthusiastic than the last. Captain, he's extraordinary, she told me after the first day. He sees connections we miss. He doesn't just fix the sabotage, he improves the systems while he's at it. The Crimson Tide's quantum drive is running 15% more efficiently than it did when it was new. But it wasn't just Deacon's skill that impressed me. It was how he treated my people. He learned names. He asked questions. He made jokes that our translators barely rendered, but that made my crew laugh anyway. On the Silver Promise, he spent an extra hour teaching their junior engineers his diagnostic techniques. On the Star's Edge, he helped their chef fix a malfunctioning food processor that had been broken for months. By the third day, my fleet wasn't just fixed, it was transformed. And so was I. I met him in the ethereal Dawn's shuttle bay as he prepared to leave. He looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and grease stains on his jumpsuit. But he also looked satisfied. All 47 ships are operational, he reported. I've left detailed documentation of the sabotage devices and the countermeasures with Zyn'thara. Your engineers can handle any future issues. I've also included some suggestions for security improvements. Whoever did this had inside knowledge. You have a problem, Captain, and it's not mechanical. I knew he was right. I'll investigate. See that you do. He picked up his toolbox. It was an interesting 3 days, Captain. Your people are good. You should trust them more. Wait. I stepped forward, pulling something from my uniform. It was my personal insignia, the mark of my command. This is a captain's honor token. It means you have my respect and my protection. Show this to any Valorian vessel, and they'll treat you as they would treat me. He stared at the token, clearly understanding its significance. Captain, I can't accept. You earned it, Deacon Gray. You saved 47 ships and 15,000 lives. More than that, you reminded us that wisdom doesn't require centuries of civilization. Sometimes it just requires someone willing to look at a problem differently. He took the token, holding it carefully. Then I suppose I should tell you something. I wasn't entirely honest about how I found you. My hand moved toward my sidearm. Explain. I was tracking the sabotage, he said calmly. We've seen similar patterns in 3 other sectors. Small, targeted strikes designed to look like system failures. Someone's destabilizing multiple fleets simultaneously. I've been following the pattern, trying to get ahead of it. When I saw the Valorian fleet's quantum signatures go dark, I knew this was connected. You're hunting the saboteurs. Someone has to. He shrugged. Your governments are too busy posturing and politicking to see the pattern, but it's there. Someone's preparing for something big, Captain, and they're making sure the most powerful fleets won't be able to respond when it happens. I felt cold. Do you have proof? Enough to be concerned, not enough to convince your admiralty. He looked at me directly. But maybe I don't need to convince them. Maybe I just need to convince you. I thought about the past 3 days, about how easily Marcus had identified and solved problems my people couldn't see, about his warning regarding inside knowledge, about the pattern he described. What do you need? I asked. Information, fleet movements, maintenance schedules, personnel transfers, anything unusual in the past cycle, and I need you to watch for more sabotage attempts. This wasn't random, and it won't be the last. I should have reported this to command. I should have followed protocol. But protocol had left us dead in space, and a human had saved us. You'll have it, I said. Encrypted transmission to your vessel. But Deacon, if you're wrong about this, if you're playing some human game. If I'm wrong, you can hunt me down personally, he said. But I'm not wrong, Captain. I'm just hoping we figure it out before whatever's coming arrives. He left then, his shuttle detaching and accelerating away from the fleet. I watched until his signature disappeared from our sensors. Captain, Velrus approached. What just happened? Something unprecedented, Commander. I turned from the viewport. A human just made me question everything we thought we knew about ourselves. In the weeks that followed, I did as Deacon asked. I gathered information. I looked for patterns. And I found them. Subtle, insidious signs of a coordinated campaign spanning multiple sectors. Personnel transfers that made no sense. Maintenance schedules altered at the last minute. Small system failures that seemed innocuous but followed a pattern. I also received messages from Deacon. Brief, encrypted, informative. He was moving through the galaxy, staying ahead of the sabotage, warning fleets before they could be compromised. Some listened. Most didn't. But slowly, we were building a network of ships and captains who were willing to look beyond species and tradition to see the truth. The Valorian Admiralty eventually noticed the ethereal Dawn's enhanced efficiency. They demanded to know how we'd achieved it. I told them the truth. A human engineer had shown us what we'd been missing. They didn't believe me at first. Then Lysandra presented her data, showing not just the repairs but the improvements. Other captains whose ships Deacon had helped added their testimonies. The evidence was undeniable. 3 months after Deacon Gray walked onto my bridge, the Valorian fleet issued its first formal commendation to a human engineer. They also, quietly, began investigating the sabotage pattern he'd identified. I think about him often, about his worn jumpsuit and ancient tools, about his steady hands and sharper mind, about how he saw past our silver skin and ancient civilization to treat us as equals, not because we demanded it, but because he genuinely believed we were. The galaxy is vast, and there are millions of species scattered across it. We Valorians pride ourselves on our sophistication, our technology, our long history. But sometimes sophistication blinds us to simple truths. Sometimes technology makes us forget the fundamentals. And sometimes history teaches us to rely on the wrong lessons. Deacon Gray taught me that wisdom isn't about how long your civilization has existed. It's about how clearly you see the problems in